Okay, we're finishing today Hilcos Siman Lamed Zayin, Hilcos Tevilas Keilim. We're up to Yud Aleph, the last three Simonim here in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. It says over here, Im Tevel Keilim Shepiyim Tsar. Like if someone's tabling a bottle, and usually when you put a keli, you put a keli into the water covers the keli. But if you put a bottle into the water, so the water, maybe a little bit of water will go in, but you have to, the whole keli got to get covered with the water. So he says, Sarach Lashgiach, you have to pay attention. Sheyiyu v'mayim achi smalu mayim. In other words, you have to put it into the water, maybe a little bit on a tilt, so they can fill up with water. Once it fills up with water, then you could take it out and pour back the water into the mikveh. Otherwise, the tefillah will be a problem because it didn't get just like, let's say, if a keli has a sticker on it or a price, so it's a problem. You have to pay attention to remove it because the water has to cover the whole keli. The same thing over here, it wouldn't get into the keli from both sides. Kitzara shiavoy amayim ala keli mibifnim umibechutz. Has to be inside and outside. But mainly you have to be careful when you table a bottle. Kotan uketana. A cotton or a tana, a young boy under bar mitzvah or under a girl under 12, they're not reliable on Tevilas Keilim. If there's a gadol standing there, a gabov, then it's a different story. But like sometimes a mother will go into the store and buy a keli and then send her boy who's 10 years old, go toivel the keli. The boy knows about toivel. He goes to the mikveh. You know, it's far out of Shabbos. That's not good. Incidentally, when you when you buy a keli in a store and you want to toivel it, you have to pay for it before you toivel it. The reason you have to pay for it before you toivel it because it has to be your keli. So it's your keli, then you're mechuyev to toivel. Until you pay for it, it's the store's keli. So especially if you're making a bracha, not everyone makes a bracha for different reasons, because it's a suffix. Does it need tefillah? Does it not need to? Exactly what is the material? Exactly who made it? You know, was it maybe made in a Jewish company? But otherwise, you're tabling someone else's keli, not your keli. So it becomes a shayla if it needs tefillah or not.
Can the store owner table all his keilim just sell like that?
What?
The store owner, can he table all his keilim and sell?
No. The store doesn't table all his keilim himself.
They used to table certain things before Pesach, like pillars, knives, they could do it.
They did it maybe for convenience, for the custom.
Yeah, but not allowed to.
Huh?
They made a mistake, they didn't know. It was wrong, they're not allowed to.
Oh, they did. They didn't know the other good. I said if they did it for convenience. That
No, they didn't know. Not kosher. No, you have to say it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Incidentally, I have a sefer.
Yeah.
There's a whole sefer called Tevilas Keilim, and I think the Mechaber, I think it was a Lubavitcher. It's I don't know the name over here. He brings that Rebbe, he brings Sichas here. His name was Reb Hirsch Cohen, Tzvi Cohen. I think there was an Eretz there was a Yerushalayim, there was Cohen.
Yeah.
I think this is from this family.
That's wrong.
Huh?
That's wrong. That's wrong. It was printed that is wrong.
It's from Eretz yeah. So he has over here, you know, there's a shy. Let's say we learned all about Tevilas Keilim, but we didn't touch on one point. What happens? You come to someone's house let's say you visit someone, and they offer you a coffee, or they offer you a drink. We'll soon talk about a meal yet. Are you allowed to drink the soda, let's say, that they'll give you the can and you pour it into the glass? Are you allowed to pour it if you have a suffix, if they table the Keilim? I mean, not a lot of people, that became a Kurovim, so to say, don't table Keilim. Or Moshe, let's say, to go eat in a restaurant. A lot of restaurants table their Keilim. And that would mean to say that all the Keilim that they have, they table. But some restaurants, when they opened up and they got the mishgir there, so they went and they tabled all the Keilim. But the Keilim get, they get circulated and they get lost in everything. They get broken. They buy every Keilim that they. So if you want, you could say that what happens if Keilim got mixed up. Keilim with the Getayvut the Keilim, with Keilim the not Getayvut. Okay, so that we have a din from Bittul B'Raiv. There's a din from Bittul B'Raiv that if the Raiv are Getayvut and the meat are not Getayvut, so you could hold that it's all Getayvut. B is the Moshe, let's say, a caterer makes an event. Does every caterer table the Keilim? I don't know. I mean, so are you allowed to, the question is, are you allowed to eat in someone's house when there's a suffix if he table the Keilim or not? So in this Sefer, he is basically, he's quite machmor on that. But he throws in from here to there, he throws in some hetairim, l'moshel, by drinking a glass of soda. Or better yet, you eat a meal on a kosher, you order a kosher meal on the airline. And, if you go, let's say, first class, they serve you, fancy. They put out a tablecloth for you, and they give you silverware, and they give you dishes. The question is, what about the table of the Keilim? So, Mocha, you used to work by Bernstein. Is Bernstein table the Keilim? Huh? Stamanat. Huh? And the biggest, he doesn't want to talk Lashon Hara, but the biggest kosher food for airlines is Bernstein. That's the biggest. The Satmar have also now, they have some contract, but it's not so popular. They don't serve so much food on the airlines, but the biggest one is Bernstein. So over there, you could say that the airlines is serving you the meal, right? So it's United Airlines or American Airlines. United or America doesn't have to table their Keilim. They're goyim. Why do they have to table their Keilim? But he says when you come to someone's house, he seems to be machma over here, and he says it's al derech, like where you borrowed a keli. What happens if you borrowed a keli from somebody? Or you rented a keli for somebody? So then, you're mechuyev to be table. So he wants to be medam with that to a case where you borrowed a keli or you rented a keli. If we go with that approach, it's a big problem. So today maybe it wouldn't be so much of a problem because today people use a lot of plastic. So, people use a lot of plastic. Plastic doesn't need tefillah. But what happens if they didn't use plastic? So then you could say that if it was Moshe, let's say, they served you on China. So China, we learned already in Shulchan Aruch over here that there's a question whether China is a kli cheres. It's glazed. But the glazing of today is not mechuyev b'tefillah, because it's not really a thick glazing on the keli. That's the way we discussed it. So that's another way to get around it. But he brings over here from among all the machmirim, he brings one Rav. There was a Rav here in Brooklyn. I happen to know him. I knew him. His name was Rabbi Leibus. I once made a get by him, a title by him. So he wrote a sefer, and he says an interesting thing. It's not really a shayl. Why is it not a shayl? He says, when you eat by someone, a shayl, why is a shayl mechuyev b'tefillah? So he says, as far because the shayl, it becomes yours. V'bal you mechuyev b'achrayis. So once you're mechuyev b'achrayis, and the shayl is chayiv even on einstein, so then it's considered like yours, and therefore you have to taivu it. Over here he says, you are not borrowing the keli, you are getting the food, not the keli. The person that needs the keli in order to serve it to you, but you're not borrowing the keli. So, and he says also that if you put food on a keli that wasn't getayvut, it doesn't answer the food. So all these things are possible because I don't know people that should be machmir that if they come into someone's house and they offer them a glass of soda or a glass of water, that they wouldn't take the glass because it's not getayvut. Maybe I think Robert Eicher used to be machmir. He used to ask that she give it to him in a plastic cup. I mean, but most people, I don't know. So you got to look for some heta to make things available. I remember Rabbi Sinna from Borough Park once gave a shir. He shared Keilim. So he said there's some important rules in Paskin Shailas. He says one rule is that you have to be sometime machma, but don't be a chamor. Another rule is sometimes you have to be makel, but don't be a kal. So you have to find a heta for Klal Yisrael why people aren't doing such things.
A kosher restaurant?
Huh?
A kosher restaurant, there is no shayla.
A kosher restaurant? No. So the question is, are you a shayl on the keli?
In a restaurant, it's there.
When they serve you the food, it's a good.
A kosher restaurant, they're the balabatim.
They're the balbatim, okay, but when they're giving you the food in their dish, so if you borrow a keli from a guy, so that's what they want to be medame to the Inyan of Shayla, and he says you're not borrowing the keli. That's not the din. It's not the din of shayl that we talk about borrowing a keli. That's what he was.
He's saying you're buying the food, you're not buying the keli.
You're buying the food and you're not buying. Yeah, but it comes together. But they said you're not a shayl on the keli because you don't have a din shayl. What happens if the keli falls down and cracks? Are they going to charge you for it? No. So if you were a shayl and it fell down a crack, a shayl is chayav ba'insin. So the chiyah makes it. We have a din by chometz. By chometz is a din le'yirol chometz chasar chagul le'yimotzi le'yirol if kiblo v'chrayis. So then you're even bal yirol, even though it's not yours, it's someone else's. But if you kiblo v'chrayis, it's considered like yours. So he says over here in this case, it's not considered like yours. Okay, that's one heta. Other hetaim they say is that certain keilim are not mechuyev b'tefillah. We're not talking about that. Glasses, they say, is only midrabanan. So it's a suffix midrabanan, and then it's a suffix. Maybe it came from a place that was made the place that you don't need tefillah. I mean, that's what they're throwing around different sveikas. But he goes with the hanocha that you need tefillah. Okay, let's see over here inside. Also, lahatful keli b'Shabbos v'yontiv. Shabbos and Yontiv, you're not allowed to table a keli. V'im shochach la'bilai mikayim. If you forgot to table it before Shabbos and Yontiv, the reason you're not allowed to table a keli on Shabbos and Yontiv is because it's called a tikkun mona, like you're fixing something on Shabbos. Yitnanu l'nochi b'matana. You should give it to a nochi b'matana. V'yachza v'yishalenu mimenu, and then you should borrow it from the nochi. But so, I'm assuming that you wouldn't make up that it's not a, you wouldn't be responsible for it. Assuming they have that with the sulegen. Over here he says, "Mikomag achar Shabbos tzorach la'adbilai b'lei bracha." Mistama, why adbilai b'lei bracha? Because Shabbos you couldn't do it, and he goes with the shita that a shoyl is chayev. So it's a bracha, a question of the bracha. V'imhu keli sharoi l'havi by mayim. If it's a keli that you could draw water, you can go to the bar and fill it up with water and bring water to the house. So then it's like it's a trick. Like, is what should you do? In a place where you're allowed to, because otherwise, if you're not allowed to be metaltal, so there's a shayla. The bird is a rishus hayachad. It's lamata me yutfachim, and bringing up from the bird is bringing from rishus hayachad into a kamalus, or it becomes questions about it. Is yisha by mayim biavia lebeisai? The bird is good for tefillah because the bird has a din of a mayim. So maybe the bird you can put it in and the lemerze kematbu. It doesn't look like you're tivling because people that see will see that you went to the bird to go. You need the water for the table. V'loi yivarech olav, and he shouldn't make a bracha because once he makes a bracha, then it'll look like he's tivling already. So therefore he says he shouldn't make a bracha. Another answer that they give is that the person could go to the mikvah on Shabbos. You gotta hold the keli in his hand while he's in the mikvah. So while it's together, let's say these are answers that we don't really use very often. Okay, this is the dinam of Tevilas Keilim, which I told you there's svarim just on Tevilas Keilim. There's a lot of different minhagim. I saw a shayla. There are pots. You know, a pot that's called an enamel pot. You ever see the enamel pots? A pot that has like a white coating in it. That enamel pot.
Clay, it's not clay.
What?
Enamel.
They say that enamel is a cheres. So just as we went before, like a keli that's covered, it's covered with cheres, the whole keli. The opinion that hold that you don't need any tefillah by it, because cheres doesn't need tefillah. Okay, we'll start now.
Is there an opinion that
What was that?
Is there an opinion that says that the first time you use a keli you don't need tefillah?
Oh, that
Yes,
I spoke about that, but I'll just repeat it briefly. That shower comes in by the aluminum pans. The aluminum, all the aluminum pans that they make, they bake in and everything. So the question, if you buy aluminum pans, you have to table the aluminum pan. So I spoke about it sometime last week, that there's really a machlekes between the poskim. There are some that hold, I think one is the Debrecina, I think is machma, that it needs tefillah. And you'll notice many times by by the Keilim store or by other stores where they have a mikveh, people are sending them tevin aluminum pans. There are some that hold. I think that's a Moshe sheet also. That it's a aray. It's not a shimush aray. In other words, very temporary because you only use it one time and you throw it out. So you don't need tefillah. So but today is geworden, I mentioned, a new thing now. I noticed that they sell aluminum pans and they write, Ein et tzarech tefillah, it doesn't need tefillah. So, l'chayre, why would the aluminum pan not need tefillah? Because it was made in a Jewish company. But the question is, where do you have a Jewish company that can manufacture? This is a tremendous a steel company or aluminum company. Do you know of any such Jewish company? So I heard that they came up with a new idea. They make these Keilim are made in China or someplace else in Asia or something. It's made over there. What do? They come over there and they make up with the guy who owns the company, that they're buying the company from him. So I said it's the reverse of what we do by Pesach. By Pesach, we sell the chametz to the guy, and they, over there, they buy the company from the guy. I even said that we are machmor by Pesach, that you should have an order of kabbalah when you sell the chametz. Over there, you don't need an order of kabbalah. When do you need an order of kabbalah? When the guy owes the yid money. But when the yid owes the guy money, you don't need an order of kabbalah.
He's asking regarding a regular Keilim.
Huh?
He's asking regarding a regular Keilim.
Non-disposable.
We spoke about jars, if you can use jars a second time.
No, he's talking about a regular pot, a regular knife. The first time.
No, you have to tell you. There's no such thing. There's no heta for the first time. That whole heta of first time. First of all, it's not exactly true that it's only used one time. There are many people that they use it more than one time, and it also depends what you made in it. Yeah, if you made it some meat with a heavy gravy and everything, you don't want to stand and wash it out. But if you
non-disposable, talking about a regular Keilim, a nice dishes set. Somebody bought brand new dishes and he wants to use them on Shabbos and forgot to turn them.
that we're going to over here now. Is that we're going to? There was a problem. Okay, there was a problem last year. Last year, because of the corona, the COVID, there was a problem that people weren't going to the mikveh. So there was a big problem, and for Pesach people, that's the most popular time of the year when people tevel Keilim. So what to do with the Keilim that they bought for Pesach? And they relied on this heta of giving it to a guy, and they even had a star that they gave it to a guy, and they borrowed it back from him, and or they sold it to the guy, and the guy gave them some money for it, and then they borrowed it from him.
Why can't they do the same thing to every store? Make it to a guy, and every store should make it to a guy.
Because it's when you're dealing with Pesach, you have no breda. There's a machlokes is mechias chametz. There are people that are against mechias chametz also, because they hold that mechias chametz is harama. Harama means a trick. It's like a game. The Alter Rebbe holds that it's a mechira gemura, but others hold that it's a harama. Not only do they hold that it's a harama, there's people that don't sell chametz. They use up all their chametz before Pesach and they don't sell it. So I asked someone that I spoke to about this ma'aseh with the Keilim. So he said he relies on it because there's a suffix today if it's mechuyev b'tefillah or not mechuyev on tefillah. Like I mentioned before, there's suffix if a one-time keli, a pen that a disposable, not one time that the disposable is mechuyev. So if you put together the two things, number one, it made up being mechuyev b'tefillah because it's a disposable, so it's a keli aray. And number two, then you rely on the mechira that they make that you shouldn't need tefillah. And the tefillah could be only midrabanan, and basically, that's a bunch of potato. But today, Many stores are selling what do you call it, aluminum pans. It says in it, "Ein it tzorach tefillah." With a satam hechsher, it's a hechsher from a person named Benjamin Gruber. Benjamin Gruber is one of the satam machshirim.
Does the Lubavitcher rely on it?
I don't know what the Lubavitcher do.
Right.